Hey everyone, Nelson here from Priority Bicycles, and today we're going to assemble the Priority Turi.
Before we get started, it's important to know that we always recommend that your bicycle be professionally assembled. Or if you choose to follow this video and do home assembly, we recommend that a professional bicycle mechanic safety check your bicycle before riding. Now let's get started.
Before we get started, let's make sure we get a photo of the label on the side of the box. On either side of the box, you'll see a label that looks like this, which will include all the bicycle's information. We'll want to take a photo of that and save it in case we have any issues with our bike. Now let's open up your box. You'll need a box cutter or a pair of scissors to do so. After removing the bike, make sure to check inside the box because you'll see a small box like this with all your small parts. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what's inside. Using your box cutter, we're going to open up the box. And inside you'll find your rear reflector, bottle cage, your pedal set, some touch-up paint, hardware to attach the front fender, and last you'll find your owner's manual and some tools. It's a good idea to stop what you're doing now to go over your manuals and then continue the video. Now let's get all the packaging material off of the bike. You'll want to use a box cutter, diagonal cutter, or a pair of scissors to do this. Now that we have most of the packing material off of the bike, let's focus on the fork. We're going to hold the handlebars out front like so, grab the fork, and we're going to rotate it 180 degrees clockwise. So right now it's facing backwards. I'm going to face it forward like so. Then we're going to grab our handlebars and we're going to rotate it around. We're going to get the quill inside of the steer tube. Make sure that there are no cables in the way. No need to lock anything down yet, as we'll want to rotate the handlebars. To do so, we'll grab our 6mm Allen key and loosen this bolt under here. We'll want to get the handlebars parallel to the ground for now, and then just snug up that bolt. We'll do the finishing touches later on. Now we're ready to install the quill stem properly into the steer tube. When doing so, you'll notice some markings on the quill stem. You want to make sure that those are inside the steer tube at all times. Having them above the steer tube can cause failure to the stem. If you have some grease, we'll go ahead and apply some from those markings downward. Then grab your 6mm Allen key to tighten the bolt. No need to get the stem straight with the fork just yet, as we'll do that later in the video. For now, let's just get this bolt snug. With the handlebar on the bike, let's get the rest of the packing material off of the fork. Using your 5mm Allen key, we're going to install your brake caliper onto the left side of the fork using these tabs here. Using your Allen key, we'll remove these two bolts. Now we're going to feed this hose into this claw bracket here. Grab your bolt, feed it through the tab on the left side of the fork, and thread it onto the caliper. The caliper bracket should be on the inside of the fork, like so. Do the same at the bottom. You want to thread these until they're just snug. Now let's get your front wheel installed onto the fork. To do so, you'll want to remove this spacer here using your 15mm wrench. Just lift the front end of the bike, grab your tool, and loosen the nuts on the side. Then grab this tab inside of the brake caliper so your disc brake can fit inside. You want to save this in the event you ever take your front wheel off of the fork. This will protect the brake pads from squeezing in on each other. Now let's get the wheel installed on your bike. When doing so, we're going to want to match the rotor to the left side of the bike so it fits onto the caliper. And we're going to also want to loosen these axle nuts from both sides and grab all three spacers and bring them outward. From here, we're going to pick up the front end of the bike, slide the wheel underneath, and then install those washers and axle nuts. It's important to align the rotor inside of the brake pads and the dropouts over the axle. Now, you'll want to rotate the washer so that the hooked one fits inside of this hole, like so. Then we can hand tighten the axle nut. You want to do the same thing on the opposite side. Now that everything's installed properly, let's use our 15mm wrench to lock down these axle nuts. If you have a torque wrench, you'll want to get these down to about 30 Newton meters. If not, you want to tighten them until the wrench leaves an indentation in your palm. With both wheels now on the bike, let's use our kickstand so the bike can prop up on itself. Now let's get your seat post installed. Just like your quill stem, this has a minimum insertion. You'll see some markings at the bottom section of the seat post indicating so. If you have some grease, you want to apply it onto the seat post just below those markings. From here, we can open the quick release lever and slide the seat post in. You'll want to lock the seat post down so that the top of the saddle reaches your hip bone. If the quick release on the seat post collar does not feel tight when you turn this lever, you'll want to adjust this knob here. Open up the quick release lever, thread this piece in, and then turn your lever. It should feel much tighter now. If the lever is too tight, turn the knob the opposite way. Once you have your saddle at the right height and the lever on the collar is tight, let's make sure that the nose of the saddle is pointing forward. Now let's install your pedals. You'll notice that there's a left and a right side to these. You can tell by the L sticker or the R sticker. You can also tell by looking over here on the flat side of the spindle where the tool interfaces with it. Completely smooth will be the right, and then the pedal with markings on it will be the left. Let's start by installing your right pedal. If you have some grease, let's apply it onto the threads of the spindle. Now, using your 15mm wrench, we're going to install the right pedal onto the right crank. Now let's lock down that pedal. Grab the rear wheel here at its 12 o'clock position, then put your wrench onto the spindle, and then using your right hand, you're going to push downward to lock down that pedal. We're going to install the left pedal onto the left crank, and we're going to turn this to the left to tighten it down. Make sure to grease the threads on the spindle, which I already did. Again, we're going to start by using our fingers to tighten this down, and once it gets tight, we'll use our wrench. To lock down the pedals, we'll hold the rear wheel at the 12 o'clock position using the right hand, and we'll use the wrench on the flats of the pedal to tighten down. Let's get your fender installed onto the front fork. For this, we'll need your fender and the hardware that came in your small parts box. You also need your 10mm wrench and your 5mm Allen key. The proper order for this hardware will be the bolt, a thin M6 washer, the concaved washer, another M6 washer, and then an M6 threaded nut. Let's remove the nut, one thin washer, and the concave washer, and leaving just the bolt and one washer. Let's install the bolt with one washer through this hole here. Then on the back side, we're going to install the concaved washer and the fender, followed by your washer and the M6 nut. From here, we'll get the hardware snug by using your 5mm Allen key and your 10mm wrench. You'll want to leave the hardware loose enough where you can still manipulate the fender up or down. Now let's attach your strut to this bolt here at the dropout. Using your 5mm Allen key, let's remove this bolt. You'll notice there's a washer on there, so that's going to go on the outside of the strut. Feed the bolt through and then thread. And then thread the bolt into the dropout. Then using your 5mm Allen key, we're going to tighten down that bolt. You'll want to do the same thing on the opposite side. With your struts installed, we can now properly space the fender away from the tire. I like to put a finger between the fender and the tire, like so. Then put the 5mm Allen key onto the head of the bolt, and then tighten with the 10mm wrench. Now let's come to the back of the bike to install the rear fender strut onto the frame using this bolt here. With your 4mm Allen key, we're going to remove the bolt. You'll notice a washer with this bolt, which will go on the outside of the strut. Grab the strut, align it with the hole, and then feed the bolt through. Now let's tighten this down using your 4mm Allen key. Once you're done tightening this bolt down, you want to do the same thing on the opposite side. Let's install your bottle cage using these two bolts here. So we have our bike pretty much assembled at this point. The last thing we'll want to do is go through every bolt on the bike and also check the ergonomics of our handlebar and stem. Let's start by doing the ergonomics on the stem first, and then we'll go through the rest of the bolts. First thing I'll do here is align the stem to the front wheel so that it's straight. Then I'm going to lock down this bolt at the top of the stem. If you have a torque wrench, you want to tighten this down to 20 Newton meters, or until the tool leaves an impression on your hand. Now let's get your handlebars aligned to a comfortable position. Loosen this bolt here, and then rotate the handlebar so that the grips are parallel to the ground, or angled to the rider's needs. Then we're going to tighten down this bolt here to 25 Newton meters, or until the tool leaves an impression in your hand. Let's grab our reflector, bring it to the center of the handlebar, and then using a Phillips head screwdriver, let's tighten it down. Let's get your rear reflector and install it onto the C-post. Now let's go through every bolt on the bike. We want to make sure that we tighten ones that we touched today and ones that we didn't. Thanks for joining me in assembling your priority Turi. We highly recommend that your bike get professionally checked over after you did your assembly to make sure that everything is nice and safe. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our information is at the bottom of the screen.